The project started, kind of a long time before we actually really started to kind of tackle how do we CNC cut multiple materials laminated together and then work that surface up into a smooth surface. For a long time we were doing a lot of computer based design, these very digitally inspired forms that were only really achievable via the CNC process. But what we were using was styrofoams and foams and plastics, which seemed extremely wasteful and not really value adding in the sense of material. So what we wanted to do was to value add material at that stage. So basically whatever the material is that you put before the machine is actually going to be the finished part, rather than having to work with coatings and paints and so on to just achieve the same old plastic surface that anybody could achieve. So we really wanted to kind of value add to that process by making a very unique kind of carving block, and that unique carving block was to be made of all these materials that could be individually cut and worked and fabricated, but the challenge was to kind of put them all together and see how they all were cut, sanded and smoothed and lacquered all together. So then the idea was there. It took a lot of convincing to find people with these machines that were willing to kind of do this R&D kind of work. Created a scale model. It's probably about 40 centimetres long, that has now been in existence for probably about 4 or 5 years now, and that basically replicated all of the processes. The laminating of the sheets, which adhesives could actually be used between the woods and the glue and the plastics and so on, and then also the process to cut. So it obviously has to go extremely slowly. You're left with a fairly smooth surface, but that smooth surface needs to then be sealed and worked up, almost like a floor or a boat deck or something like that. So we had to research all of those processes on a scale before magnifying it up to the real thing.
How did you go about choosing the materials?
They needed to be sheet materials, they needed to be stable, and they needed, as far as seasonal movement and so on. And then we wanted to get a variety as well. And some of the materials that were in the scale model were a little bit problematic, so they were removed and replaced with others. So we kind of looked at all the different materials. As I said, we've tried to get a variety. I think that there's probably 5 or 6, maybe even 7 different types of plywood alone, from different species, but also different grades, different colours, to kind of really get that sense of of pinstripe and the contrast between the lines. And then the combination with the plastics, not only the colours but also the gauges.